What if you could text your way to better mental health? Today's guest, Johnny Crowder, in addition to being a touring hardcore metal musician, has also developed an amazing tool he's going to talk to us about today on the Manlihood ManCast.
Men, nobody but you can lead your family and yourself to greater things. Nobody but you can carve your path. It's time to rise up and be a man. Welcome to the Manlihood ManCast with Josh Hatcher.
Good day and welcome to the Manlihood ManCast. I'm your host, Josh Hatcher, and I'm really glad that you guys have been tuning in to what we're doing here. I truly believe that this is not just a podcast that you're listening to on your streaming device, but this is a movement that you get to be a part of. And I want to thank all of you guys for making the world a better place by digging in and doing the hard work so that your family, your wife, your kids, your community, your church group, the people around you can experience a better world. Because that's what happens. When men become even better men, the whole world benefits from it. And that's what we need. All you have to do is look around you. You can see that the world is lacking in men who say, I'm going to be better. Like the problems we solve, or the problems we face in this world, I believe would be solved if men just stepped it up and did what they were supposed to do. Part of that is you guys working on your own mental health. And that's why today's guest, I think, is going to be a phenomenal resource for you. So Johnny Crowder is going to talk to us today about the program he's put together called Cope Notes. Johnny Crowder, it is great to have you on the Manlihood ManCast today. How you doing, man?
The Manlihood ManCast, you are interviewing somebody who's wearing women's jeans right now. I already love this dichotomy.
I won't tell anybody.
Dude, they're so much more comfortable. That's like the number one industry secret. You ask any touring musician who's wearing jeans on stage, they're women's jeans.
Well, it might work for somebody with a skinnier physique than me. I don't know. I mean, I'm wearing compression pants and workout pants right now. So
there we go.
So
it's the same thing. It's the stretch. That's all I need.
It's the stretch. Oh, so Johnny, we've been wanting to have you on the show for a while. I caught your TED Talk, and you are doing some fantastic work in the field of mental health. So why don't we get right into that, and tell me a little bit about your journey of understanding why mental health is something that we need to work on. Like what got you to that place?
The simplest way to describe it is I didn't seek it. That famous Tupac quote, I didn't choose the thug life. The thug life chose me. That's what happened with mental health for me. I did not wake up one day as an elementary schooler and say, I'm going to learn about the brain. What happened was I was experiencing what I would later know to be depression, anxiety, stress, bipolar disorder. I was hallucinating, thinking, oh, that's just my imagination. Oh, I just have a temper. So it was literally not until high school that I started realizing if I don't do something about this now, I won't be around to do something about it later. But even at that point, I didn't actually pursue treatment or working in mental health. That was another thing that kind of chose me. I wound up in treatment to avoid getting in trouble with the Florida legal system. And it wound up being a great thing for me. But I always tell people, if you have the opportunity to choose to work on mental health, do that, because you don't want someone else to make that decision for you. It's pretty scary.
Yeah. So we could definitely unpack a lot of that, but I think it's definitely worth noting, and it's something that we talk about a lot here on the Manlihood ManCast, because I think, well, I just did an episode basically that highlighted the whole idea that everybody's crazy, right? I know that's a word you're not supposed to use, but I honestly, I think that. I think everybody has, I mean, just like everybody has other health problems, everybody has some kind of mental health problem. And that's kind of my theory on it. And I think that we need to, the sooner we can accept it, then the sooner we can actually grow and move and work on getting it better. But I know that it's an epidemic for men. Like, men don't talk about it. They just muscle through, and then our suicide rates are higher than anybody else in the world. Our addiction rates are higher than anybody else, So knowing that it's a problem for men, where do we start in getting healthy when it comes to that?
Well, where do we start mentally in terms of changing our posture towards it and being open to it? Or where do we start in terms of what actions do we take in our lives to improve our health?
I'm looking more towards the action. How do we fix it? I think most people know they're not right. I think most people know they've got a problem. They like they're open, they know, but they don't know what to do about it. So they just shove it down,
Yeah, the very first thing, well, I'll tell you what I did that really helped. I would stoke my curiosity and start reading about stuff. So trust me, I have friend groups who know more about fantasy football stats than they know about their own brain. And it's because they're really curious and interested and invested in football, much more so than they are in health. So I would say if you're trying to figure out what to do next, I would focus as much time and energy as you can spare, even if it's 10 minutes before bed. You're like, I'll watch a TED Talk about mental health, or I'll read this article, or I'll ask Chat GPT what some things are that I can do. Like, really exercising. The reason why I start there rather than a concrete action like wake up at 4 a.m. or work out or whatever, the reason why I'm starting with curiosity is that begets every other action that you'll take. If you're not curious about what you can do to improve your health, the follow through is a lot more difficult. But if you are wondering, like, what are some things I could do to optimize my mental health, then you start engaging in these habits and behaviors because you're choosing to, not because you feel like you have to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely doing the research and understanding, I think, helps fuel you. So let's talk about it in the context of your own journey and your own process. What does that look like for you? Like how, like you talked about some of your diagnoses and the things that you were struggling with. How did you overcome that?
Well,
or how are you overcoming it, right? I imagine it's a lifelong journey, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Education was a big factor. Like, that's why I'm such a fan of health education. I always tell people, like, read books, watch videos. Like, there's so much information out there that you could be, even on your lunch break, like watching a Psych Hub video about here's 10 facts about depression that you didn't know. Just like learn things. But then another thing that's really helped me too is the balance of using things that are traditionally associated with mental health and the things that I already liked before. So something that's traditionally associated with mental health that has helped me is going to therapy. I was medicated for, I think, 11 years or something. So like traditional things like medication and therapy really helped me, journaling. But then there were things that I already liked that once I found out they were beneficial for my mental health, it made me twice as likely to engage with them, like getting better sleep, going to sleep earlier, exercising, like actually doing strength training, playing my guitar. Like all of these things I would have wanted to do anyway. I want to sleep. I want to exercise. I want to express myself creatively. But once I learned that they supported the work I was doing in traditional treatment, like medication and therapy, it almost made me be like, oh yeah, I'm playing guitar for my brain, or like I'm exercising for my brain. It really helped me commit to what really is a long and not so simple journey of improving your mental health. It's not like after your 5th therapy session, you're perfect. It's a very slow, long journey, and incorporating things that you already liked, like exercise or art, actually helps you stick to it long term.
Yeah, so I found I'm a poet myself and a musician. So I totally get it, and I know that for me, and I haven't done this in a while, which is probably why I'm feeling the need to, right? To pick up my guitar and just sit there and write some music and write songs and put those emotions into something creative. Or, after my dad died, he loved to make things with leather and wood. He was like a craftsman, and so getting out in the shop and building, like, dude, if I didn't have that, grieving my dad, 5 years ago would have been miserable. I felt so connected to him when I was working with that wood. So are you saying like things like those kind of hobbies, those things that you enjoy, like that's a crucial part of this?
Yeah, for a long time. So you got to think, rewind. It's high school Johnny. So I'm listening to death metal. I'm doing bodybuilding. Like, I do not want to journal. I don't want to write in a diary about how I feel. I was like, no way. My coping mechanism was like punching a hole in the wall and learning that there were things that weren't like kumbaya, let's all hold hands and do yoga, that could actually improve my mental health, that things I already enjoyed, like writing. Even though I didn't want to journal, I loved writing fiction. It was so fun for me. It was like this really creative outlet that I always felt like I could express myself through. And there's a liberation that comes with the realization that there are things that look like self-care and mental wellness. And that's like your goat yoga and your smoothie bowls and stuff like that, which works for some people. I don't mean to poo-poo it. Like, it's good for some people. But then realizing that there are these things that might not look like self-care or improving your mental wellness that are actually really effective. They feel like they're effective. And that's important.
And it probably depends on the individual person too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think the worst thing for my mental health is plumbing,
How do you mean that?
Put me in the basement with a leaky pipe and like the rage, like I am now death metal Josh at that point,
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, there are literally times when I would get up from something and put in headphones, and so I have a calm down playlist on Spotify. It's all sorts of different music. There's like hip hop, there's super heavy metal, there's like soft rock and acoustic stuff, just songs that I know if you start playing that song, my whole mental and emotional self is wrapped up in that song until it's over. And there are times when I'm like, for example, my bike was stolen. I bought a new bike and I was having issues with the shifters because I bought a used new bike. And I was so frustrated trying to I'm a fixer. So like if something's broken, I want to fix it. I was so frustrated that I literally got up and I have like grease all over my hands and stuff and like all these tiny little microscopic cuts from like the chain and I just get up, I put in my headphones, and for like 3 minutes I listened to a song, and it was like back to baseline. Like my blood pressure was back to normal, heartbeat was back to normal. And I think everybody has that. Like for some people it's basketball, for some people it's cars. Like everybody has something like that where they're like, give me 3 minutes with blank, even if it's your dog, give me 3 minutes with my dog and I know I'm back to normal.
Yeah, well, I think 25 years of marriage too, if there's one thing I've learned, it's sometimes that cutting it off for a minute, walking away, doing something else can take away all of that emotional frustration. So, and you've done the research on this because you said that, like, okay, I'm going to educate myself. Why is that? Like, what is it that causes that difference?
So I'm going to get sciencey on purpose because I think it's interesting. When you're working on something and you get stressed, your brain produces a stress hormone called cortisol. And this hormone inhibits decision making. It makes it difficult to like think clearly and be rational. So, okay. I was definitely growing up, I was the rage quit guy with video games and sports. Like if I was playing a video game with my brothers and I would lose, I would like get up and walk away, or I would like want to throw the controller. I would get so frustrated. And it's, if I got up and came back and gave my brain a break for all that cortisol to kind of circulate through my system and then slowly dissipate, I could sit back down and play a video game. It was just like having such a high concentration of stress in that moment that if I didn't relieve some of that pressure, I would lose my temper. So there really is something happening in your body that's making it difficult to be calm now, whereas 15 minutes from now, 10 minutes from now, 5 minutes from now, you might feel a lot more calm about the same stimulus, the same thing that makes you hyper frustrated now. 5 minutes from now, you'll be less frustrated, but not if you sit there and keep working on it. You actually have to change your surroundings and help your brain stop, like basically turn the cortisol faucet off.
So there's times when you can almost feel it dumping. You know what I mean? Like if you're aware of it and you know that it's a faucet, like you said, and the same with like even like those moments when just like ecstasy or joy, you know, and if you just really, you can almost feel it like running down your head, you know, at least and I'm not, you know, most of the time, especially with I think cortisol, you don't notice that that's what's happening. But if you take the time to like, okay, I feel something's different here, right? So
yeah, for me, my ears get hot.
Yeah.
Like if my ears get hot, I'm like, I need to leave. That's like my physical cue that like I am T minus 2 minutes away from being frustrated in a way that's going to make this not fun for other people. And I can like get up and seriously, I remember I was at a dinner in Chicago. I was there for work and it was so loud in the restaurant because there were no carpets or anything, everything like no cushions on the chairs, so all the sound was reverberating and I couldn't hear people I was sitting at the table with. I was so frustrated and it was like I was so uncomfortable and I could feel my ears like getting hot and I stood up and I walked outside. I was like, I'll be right back. I think probably everybody thinks I went to the bathroom, but I just walked outside and stood outside the restaurant for a couple minutes and it was nice and cool outside and it just helped me. Like I looked at a bush and some lady walking a dog and I'm like, okay, we're cool. Like no big deal. And then I went back in and it was fine.
So my buddy, he smoked for years and now he vapes. That's his vape break moment, right? Mm-hmm. And I know that, you know, myself, I prefer to not do that myself, you know, but because I think, you know, it's not going to help you to fill it with a substance that's actually going to do damage. But what about you? How does that, like, is that the same kind of, like, what do those substances interfere with that process?
Yeah, I think sometimes we confuse. I mean, a great example is like, oh, I'm depressed, so I'll drink. And it's like alcohol is a depressant. Like that's not gonna help you feel less depressed. So there's like the chemical component, but I think more about the environmental component. Like I know people who say I need a smoke, and part of that is chemical, and we all know like basically our whole generation knows what nicotine is and does, whereas generations before didn't have the advantage of knowing that. But I'm putting the chemical side on hold for just a second to talk about environmentally what we want when we say, oh, I need a drink or I need a smoke. Sometimes it is like stepping outside. Basically, I had a smoke break without a vape and without a cigarette by stepping outside, calming down, changing my environment, excusing myself for just a couple minutes. And ultimately, that's what's happening in a smoke break where like I need to get up and take 5 away from this. And then we associate the comfort we feel with the stimulus. The same way that if every time you took a 5-minute break from work, you had a carrot, just a little baby carrot.
I need a carrot break.
After a year, you'd be like, man, I could go for a carrot right now because you associate it. But really what you need is a 5-minute break. And you can have that without the carrot.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and you know, it's you get your little break and your little breather without the lung cancer. So
yeah, it's a great deal. Great deal.
So, and the truth is, man, like we self-medicate a lot. You know, for me, it's like I am working on getting healthy. I'm pretty overweight and struggling with, you know, with that and trying to work through that. And it's been a struggle for my entire adult life, right? And so I'm trying to be aware of those triggers, you know? Like, and I'm recognizing now, like, how often during the day my body is just like, you need this food to make you, you need a candy bar or a piece of pizza. I don't need that, but my body is telling me that I do because it comforts me, you know? And so I'm trying to reframe that and trying to look for those other things to help do that. So this is a very timely episode for me, man.
You just said, Josh, you said something so insightful. I want to make sure people listening didn't miss it. What I just heard you delineate is the difference between what your system is telling you need with what you understand it to actually need. So it's like you need a candy bar and you're like, oh, you think I need a candy bar because I want to feel comforted. I want that feeling. So really what I actually need is not the candy. Let's skip the candy bar and see if we can get to that feeling without the candy bar. I love that you differentiated between those two things, because for a long time I would think, so I've had many challenges. But one big challenge that I had was anger. I used to be seething with anger. Like at drop of a hat, I would like swing. I had such a temper. A lot of it has to do with how I grew up and some of the challenges that I was facing, but it's not a great excuse to be that angry all the time. And I felt that what I had to do to release the anger was to throw something or hit something or break something. But what I actually needed was not to throw or hit or break something. It was to feel relief of the pressure that was building, and learning that you don't need the thing that you think, which is punching or hitting or breaking, but what that drives, which is actually the feeling of relief of pressure. If we can skip that middleman, we're going to save ourselves so much grief as we grow.
Johnny, a lot of guys that I've had on the show who talk about different things, I've heard this from several people. They say that anger is the emotion on the surface. It's never actually what you're feeling, right? So like your description of it, you're like, oh, anger is right here because it's on the top, but underneath it is, all these other emotions. And that kind of, brings up and makes me think about, in our mental health, you've got your emotional health, which is one thing, right? That's actually like the way you think and the way you feel. And then there's the physical aspect of it, the chemicals that are being released, and they're tied to the emotions. And then, even on a spiritual level, there's all these, like, it's not just, okay, you're dumping this hormone today. Like, it all kind of intertwines, right?
Yeah, one thing that is really tied into that I didn't consider until much later in my life was how our core beliefs impact what we think and feel and what we do. Like, I had a core belief that everybody was awful. So even if I could wrangle in my anger, I still underneath everything believed that I deserved to be angry and people deserved to be on the receiving end of my anger because people sucked. That was my outlook. So I think sometimes people work on, I'm going to get my brain right, or I'm going to get my feelings right, or I'm going to get the physical side right. And we accidentally neglect the thing that's underneath all of that, which is like, what is the core belief that's driving what I think and feel and do?
Yeah, because there's a lot of those, like I'm worthless, or nobody loves me, or I just can't do anything right,
It's identity stuff.
Yeah, man. Like, it gets deep into it, and it's how we see ourselves and how we see the world.
Yeah, there's this, oh man. So shout out to my therapist for being a genius, because he talked to me about this and it blew my mind. I was talking to him about tour, and there's a direct parallel to, like, I had some eating disorder issues throughout my recovery, and I gained a pretty significant amount of weight. I lost a pretty significant amount of weight. And in my head, it was like hard for me to lose weight, because in my head, like, who I felt I was like, I'm overweight. Like, that's who I am. I'm the overweight guy. And so I would accidentally, subconsciously return to that, because I didn't want my identity to be compromised. So I believed myself to be somebody that I was afraid to not be. And my therapist brought up this point where he was like, you're doing the same thing in your music career, because I've toured in a metal band for years. And I would take tours that I didn't want to do so that I could be on tour. And these were like tours that either, in order for me to be gone, I'd have to miss my friend's wedding or my nephew being born, or I would have to be out in the winter, which is actually really dangerous. I don't know if anybody listening has toured in the winter, but a van and trailer in snow or ice, it's very dangerous. And we've taken tours that we didn't want to take just to put ourselves in this uncomfortable position. And my therapist was like, do you think that part of it is that your identity is that you are a touring musician and that you'll do whatever it takes to maintain that identity, even if it makes you uncomfortable or puts you in danger? And I was like, what? Mic drop.
So I lost a little bit of what you just said, and I'm sure that it might still be there because it's Riverside and it usually kind of keeps uploading, but I didn't get to hear it, so I'm going to have you repeat. Your therapist said that your identity, and I think that's the last thing I heard, if that's okay to have you repeat it.
Yeah, he was basically saying, is your identity of being a touring musician, are you trying to protect that to the point where you are compromising your health and your comfort just to protect the part of you that says, no, this is who I am? And then I was like, wow, who we believe ourselves to be is such a powerful thing, because we'll always subconsciously try to come back to that. There's nothing scarier than not knowing who we are. So if we have it set in our head, I'm overweight, or I'm an angry guy, or I'm the guy who can't catch a break, is another thing that I've believed about myself. And then you accidentally self-sabotage to maintain this identity, because at least in a world full of unknowns, you know one thing, and it's your identity.
So how do you start over, right? How do you get to the core of who you really are?
I was, so I'm in kind of a unique position because in my early 20s, I basically had to start over as a human. Like, long story short, I was very severely mentally ill. I was on many medications, max dose, and it completely fried my brain. Like, I didn't remember who I was or like how to talk. Like, I couldn't make eye contact with people. I mean, it was basically like catatonic. And I had to really work to start over. Like, who the heck am I? Who do I want to be? And I almost felt like I was given a clean slate. Now, it was a terrible experience. Don't get me wrong. But a benefit that came from it was I got to choose, like, who's this new character? And I was talking to my buddy Steve recently about how, I mean, think about Dungeons and Dragons and how you can play, like Johnny Crowder can play Dungeons and Dragons. And let's say I don't know the game that well. Let's say I'm a healer or something. And I pick that character and I play as that character for 9 months, and then that character is killed. I don't have to leave and never play with my friends again. I, Johnny Crowder, can continue playing Dungeons and Dragons with my friends. I just pick a new character. And I think in video games, we know that you can do that. We forget that we can do it in life as well. Like, dude, at 43 years old, you can choose to start being someone else. And what was really liberating for me is I didn't have to be a version of my old self. I could be a brand new character. That felt really liberating.
I like that. Now, do you still, like, I just have to ask because it's, it's put out there. Do you still have memories from when you were younger? Like, did they come back? Like
yeah, some
you're
do.
struggling to remember a lot of that.
Yeah, I have a really spotty memory. So some things are really crystal clear, like strangely clear. And a lot of things I don't remember at all. So I've actually, part of my treatment was I had to do like memory games and like actually like puzzles and things. I had to work to build my memory back to what it is. I still forget lots of stuff. But I also think the brain, like, I went through a lot of trauma, like a lot of trauma for the first, basically until my early 20s, almost all of my life was like lived in survival mode. So I do think part of it was like, yes, part of it was the medication, but part of it was my brain going like, Johnny, if you carry this stuff for your whole life, you're going to explode. Like, so we're going to dump half of your memory so that you never have to dig too far into it, which is funny because then I did trauma therapy in my late 20s and had to dig back into it, but that's a separate story. Basically, I remember things now, but I'm careful with what memories I decide to pull on the thread of. There are some memories that I know that they're there. And I think unless there's some really positive fruit that will come from this, I'm not going to pull on that thread just because I'm curious.
Yeah, it's like ripping a scab off. The scab's going to heal.
Wow.
Let it do its
It's
work.
exactly like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you can, and if you find out there's still infection underneath there, right, later on that you need to dig out to work on, okay, then I can do that. But yeah, no, I get you. I get you. So let's talk a little bit about music, man. So are you still touring as a musician then?
Well, yes and no. So, I mean, we just did a headlining tour not too long ago. We just put out a record like maybe 2 months ago or something like that. So we're still active. I was on the phone with our manager and my bassist yesterday trying to figure out our tour schedule for this year. So we are still active. The biggest difference is that before my mental health work, like Cope Notes and speaking at events and conferences and stuff, that was kind of a side thing. And then Prison, the name of my band, like Prison was the main thing. And it's been weird because since COVID, it's kind of switched. We tour less now, and I do more of the speaking and training and running the company. And that's a weird shift because that's another identity thing. I have to be like, okay, I'm switching from full-time musician, part-time CEO to now full-time CEO, part-time musician. It's a weird transition.
That's awesome. So do you play guitar and sing?
Yeah, I play guitar at home for me. So like I write a lot of our music on the guitar, and I play a lot casually just for fun. I write a lot of styles that aren't the style that we play, but on stage I only sing.
Okay.
I don't even know if I could do both at the same time. It's like patting your stomach and rubbing your head kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's why, musically I got to play simple chords, use a capo because I can't do all the finger work and sing at the same time. So
yeah, man, I see people do that. I'm just blown away.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, or John Mayer gets up there and he's singing his guitar solo while he's playing it. And you're like, go home, buddy.
Yeah, unreal. Yeah, it's funny too because I don't even play guitar standing up. Like I never do. I always play guitar sitting down, like on my couch or in my office. So if I were to get on stage with a guitar, I would be like, I'd have to play it up here to have like the body of the guitar on my solar plexus just so I could play in my normal setup.
Yeah, that's where I end up playing because that's where my belly sits the guitar, so it's all good.
Yeah, stability, man.
Well, I had a hollow body that somebody gave me, and it was a Epiphone Sheridan, and I couldn't play it because like my belly was the fulcrum, and then my arm would like lean on the back of the guitar and twist it out of tune. So yeah, I prefer a nice boxy acoustic or a Les Paul because then it's a little meatier and it can handle the torque.
Heck yeah. Handle the torque.
This is the Manlihood ManCast.
Are you in need of marketing help for your business or nonprofit? Do you have a company or organization that is thinking about hiring an in-house staff person to do your marketing, but realizing it's out of the budget to bring on someone with the right skills and experience?
If you need an expert to help you with any of the following: social media, graphic design, website design, web hosting, public relations, video production, podcast editing, short form video editing, email marketing, search engine optimization, content marketing, grant writing.
Grand River Agency is here to help you amplify your message and get it in front of the right people. Visit us on the web at grandriver.agency.
Wow, there's so many things that we have talked about. Like you've got this crazy multifaceted life. So there's your music, Cope Notes, the CEO that you're the company of, tell me about this process. What do you do, and how did you get into that?
Yeah, I'm always very clear about saying that I never wanted to start a company. So that was not my desire. And I think that's a misconception. Like a lot of people think, oh, entrepreneurs are people who love starting companies. I mean, that's not true of me. Like I like making stuff. And this thing that I made happened to be a company, just like the prison happened to be a band. I just like making stuff. And maybe 7 years ago or something like that, I was working on this idea of, so if anyone listening doesn't know what peer support is, it basically means, let's say I live with bipolar 1 and you live with bipolar 1, then I can provide peer support to you because I am your peer. I have the same lived experience as you, or at least similar enough for me to know what you're talking about. So peer support was fascinating to me. It really helped me in my recovery. And I had this idea where I wanted to scale peer support. Like, what would that look like? I was touring at the time, so I'm like, do I make like a different peer support group in every city that I go to and do a different group every night? Or what is that? Or is it an online thing where you're like chatting with a peer? This is kind of pre-telehealth a little bit. And eventually it turned into what we do today, which is we send randomly timed text messages that are written by peers with lived experience. I think psychology facts or journaling prompts, exercises, and these messages show up on your phone at random times, just once per day. And you don't get what I get. I don't get what you get. Like everyone has their own unique text sequence. And over time, these messages literally interrupt negative thought patterns and train the brain to think healthier thoughts. So it's exactly what I needed when I was growing up. I think a lot of people who build things build the things that they needed and looked for and couldn't find.
So if we like translate the concept to recovery, so a peer support is kind of like a sponsor would be, right? In the like an Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever.
Mm.
So what you're saying is instead of it being a person that you're in that relationship with, which is still a good thing to have, you're saying that people who have worked through the issues are now writing messages, and then those messages get sent out to people that need them. So like I could just be sitting here and get a text message that I didn't know that I needed, is what you're saying.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Dude, that's really neat. That's awesome.
Yeah. So the reason why I built it that way was because I didn't love the idea of setting aside an hour for a therapy session, or I didn't know what my schedule would look like, or if I wanted to show up for a peer support group and I was traveling, like, oh, I can't make the group. What am I supposed to do now? So all of these barriers that I faced when I was trying to use other resources, I wanted to build something that was very flexible and easy to use. So people don't even have to remember to use Cope Notes. Like we show up on your phone. You don't have to reach out to us. We reach out to you.
That's really neat because like I know in my life there are times when I'll get a text message from a friend, maybe it's a scripture verse or it's just how's it going, man? And it's like I needed that conversation that sparked at that moment. Can you respond to those notes when you get those?
Yeah. Yeah, you can journal back, and it's just like a physical journal. Like it's not like going to trigger a chat with like a crisis counselor and they're going to alert 988 or anything like that. It's like it's a very, I hesitate to use this word, but it's like a very chill mental health resource. Like it's not going to automatically escalate you to anything. It's not going to like sneak charge you additional things if you text back. It's just like, it's a very low maintenance kind of set it and forget it way to work on your health.
I think that's awesome, dude. So why did you decide this is how we're going to do this? Was it because that was, like you said, it was what you thought that would help you? Like the concept is amazing. So I just want to understand your thought process behind it.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. This was not the original version. Like the original version was in-person groups, which then turned into online one-on-one peer support conversations. But then people would make really good points about issues that they were like, well, I don't want someone to have my name. and my demographic data. Like, I don't want someone to know how old I am or where I live or what my name is or even my gender, my sexual orientation. Like, I want it to be totally anonymous. And we're like, how the heck are we supposed to facilitate that? And then they'd be like, well, I don't want to choose an appointment time. And I'm like, what the heck? How are we supposed to have a session? So each time that somebody would complain about something, I would make this master list of like all of the challenges that people were facing with the original version. And then slowly I started thinking like, what could we possibly do that would address all of these complaints? And this was that. It was like these randomly timed 10-second interventions. And now 6 years later, it's actually proven to reduce stress, anxiety, and depression. So we were right. We were on the right track. Like, those people who complained actually helped me build something that's effective. And I wouldn't have done it unless they would have said, this first version is so inconvenient, you know?
That's amazing, man. I love it. Yeah, I can think I can think of many times where that would be something helpful to have, to be able to just that moment that you get the message that's like, hey, how's it going with this, you know, or whatever the prompt is. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of power in that, dude. That's awesome.
Probably every person listening has driven past a billboard where they're like, whoa, what are the odds that billboard said that? It's so in line with what I'm going through. Or they turn on the radio and they're like, what, this song? The refrain of this song is so in line with my life. That feeling of like, wow, I needed to hear that happens in your brain. Like, the billboard didn't know what you needed. The radio station didn't know what you needed. Your brain knew what it needed. So think of those random things, but now imagine real peers with lived experience writing health education content, like stuff that can actually teach you new coping skills, like how to get through what you're going through, and then having those messages reviewed by clinicians and mental health professionals to make sure that they'll help you. So you go from like a random thing that happens to help you every once in a while to now really targeted, pointed things that are built to train your brain to think differently.
That's awesome, dude. It's awesome. So if people want to get connected with Cope Notes, what's the best way to connect with that, man?
You can go to copenotes.com and try it. You can try it for free. You never have to buy it if you don't want to. If you do decide to pay for a subscription, you get a full year of daily mental health support for less than the price of a single therapy session. So this is, I'm not supposed to say cheap, but I'm the CEO, so I can say it is cheap.
It's affordable.
You can afford it. And then we have gift subscriptions on our website. We also do have a free week that you can use on our website that won't make you put in credit card info if you don't want to buy it. And then we kind of use social media, but not really. We always say like, we don't want to post. We want to text you. Like, go to our website, sign up, and allow us to make that impact on your life.
Awesome. So copenotes.com.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. That's awesome. Well, Johnny, I like to ask all my guests a few questions. And, we may hit on things you've talked about earlier. It may be fresh, and I get a lot of different perspectives, and I really appreciate having those because I think it helps us get a clearer picture for these things. So the first question is this. What does it take to be a man?
Probably ownership. Like, the way I'm thinking about it is I've had to own the challenges that I have had in my life. And I've also had to own the forced humility that comes from asking for help. I've had to own these feelings of discomfort that I've had as I've been trying to improve my health. Like, there are so many things in my life that I think before I would just try to put on a good face and pretend that I was fine. And I wasn't actually owning like, no, dude, you're in the thick of it. Like, you have to accept, maybe it's acceptance. Like, you have to accept that this challenge is happening in your life, and you have to be authentic and genuine with yourself and with other people about like, this is hard and I need help. I think where I see most men struggle is there. It's not actually in I think men are really good at taking action. I think where we actually get tripped up is we lie to ourselves about how severe a situation is or what the actual problem is. So it's less on the action side and more on the acceptance and ownership side. At least in my experience, that's where I've gotten tripped up the most.
Yeah, for sure. Because like I know, and ownership has, it's almost a buzzword in the men's circles now. With Jocko and that, you got to take ownership, and he's right. But the truth is, like, yeah, how about we be real with where we're at? And
That's a good way to put it.
And whether it's your fault or someone else's fault doesn't matter. Maybe what you're feeling is because somebody did something to you, but who's the only one who can change it? Who's the only one who can heal from it?
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm trying to get at in my answer is like, what's it take to be a man is just being real, like being honest and transparent. There's this church whose podcast that I listened to a lot a couple years ago, especially during COVID. And he would say, it was Pastor Michael Todd, and he would say, our church is a hot church, honest, open, and transparent. And I'm like, man, that's what it means to be a man. It's like, I'm honest about what's going on. I'm open to being wrong and new solutions. And I'm transparent, meaning I'm not hiding anything. Like that to me, when I see a man do that, I'm like, dude, that's a grown man.
Yeah, I like that. Good. Excellent. Thanks, man. All right, Johnny, let's say that you can get your hands on a flux capacitor and you get yourself up to 88 miles an hour and you go back in time to when you were 10 years old and you get to talk to 10-year-old Johnny. What are you going to tell him?
First thing, I'm flipping that flux capacitor on eBay, and I'm retiring. I actually had to do this when I did trauma therapy. I had to do this exercise, and it was not like a question. It was like a whole like multi-week long saga of like meeting my younger self. It was like, oh, dude, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And what I wound up telling this younger me was that it's not fair what I was going through, and it wasn't my fault, and I didn't deserve that to be happening to me. It wasn't because of something I did. It was just, dude, what's happening to you right now sucks, and it's not always going to be this way. Like, I needed to hear that so badly from myself, because when you're a kid and you grow up in an abusive home, you always think it's your fault. You think that you just can't stop messing up. Like, each thing you do makes everything worse. And I needed somebody to go tell me, like, you're just a kid and you're in a crappy situation and that's not your fault. It's not fair, but it won't always be like this.
Did anybody in your life try to speak that to you at that age or no?
I don't know, man. I don't think, well, this is where the honest, open, and transparent thing comes in. I wasn't telling anybody about what I was going through. So how the heck is someone supposed to comfort me or console me if I'm spending all my time and energy trying to hide that I'm going through anything in the first place? So I don't think anybody was working to tell me that, but I also don't think I gave anybody the opportunity to, because I was doing so much hiding.
Yeah, I can relate to that. That's 10-year-old Josh for sure, man. So,
yeah, it was like, is the gel in my hair spiky enough? And like, I was worried about all the wrong things. Like, if I looked presentable, then hopefully nobody would ask me how I was doing,
Yeah, I can relate. All right, my last question. What is your best advice for the men that are listening today?
Best advice. Probably to tell somebody close to you in your life something about what you're going through right now that they don't know. I can't count how many friends I have who will tell me stuff and I'll say, did you talk to your wife about that? And they say no. And I'm like, what are you freaking doing? What are you doing, man? Like, they'll say, yeah, ever since my grandpa died, I've just been really struggling and I like get nervous. Like, what if when my kids are my age and I die, what if we didn't have a good relationship? Because, and they tell me, and I'm like, dude, I only see you once a month. Like, you should tell the person that you're right next to every day. Imagine how much more support you could be receiving from the person who cares about you more than I do. So I would say, best advice, tell the person closest to you. It might be your spouse, might be your best friend or something, but open up. Even a parent, a friend, just tell them something that they don't know, because if they don't know what you're going through, they can't support you, just like we said.
Yeah, that's excellent, man. I've experienced that in my own life lately too, where my wife was like, I really want to feel closer to you. And I realized that what she was saying is she wants to know what's going on in my head and in my heart. And I'm like, oh, so I have to talk about this with you. Okay, I get you.
So what you're saying is...
At first it was like, I was like, what do you mean? I think things are going great. And if I tell you what's in my head, then it won't be going great anymore.
That's tough, dude. Yeah, I'm not married, so it's easy for me to say. Like, I'm sure people listening are like, oh, yeah, why don't I just go tell my wife? It's like, well, I'm not married, so please take it with a grain of salt.
Tell
but
somebody.
Just tell, yes, somebody close enough to you to support you.
I like it. All right, Johnny, so the guys want to connect with you. All right, first of all, if they want to follow Prison, where can they connect with the band?
Yes, we have, if you look up Prison under artists on Spotify, we're the first result. We have a record called Energy that I think you might like. And then if you're a music video person, if you go to YouTube and you search Prison Out of My Head, we have a great music video that we just put out for that. And then on Instagram, we're at Prison Lives.
I like it. So if somebody wants to connect with Cope Notes, they go to copenotes.com, right?
Correct. And we're at Cope Notes on every social platform.
Awesome. Any other places they need to connect with you at, man?
Yeah, I on Instagram, I'm at Johnny Crowder Loves You. It's my favorite handle that I have. And then I'm on Facebook as Johnny Crowder. And then I use LinkedIn probably the most. I don't know if anybody listening uses LinkedIn that much, but I am on LinkedIn. So if you search Johnny Crowder, there'll be a little brain after my name, and that's how you know it's me.
Awesome. Well, we will make sure to link you up in the show notes as well, guys. So make sure you go follow the work Johnny's doing. And, dude, I really appreciate having you on the show. Let's do it again, because I think we could talk even more, get into brain chemistry and all kinds of stuff down the road. So.
Ooh, yeah. You're bringing out the nerdy side of me, Josh. I love it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being on the show, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Hey, Johnny, thank you so much for being on the Manlihood ManCast. I really appreciate you. Guys, if you want to find out what Johnny's doing, if you want to get resources from that, check the show notes, because we've got links to his stuff there. I just wanted to let you guys all know again, I appreciate you. I'm glad that you are tuning in. Make sure you take the time to join our private Facebook group, the Manlihood Man Cave. We'd love to help be a part of your life there. We have all kinds of guys posting all kinds of things that we men find interesting and want to talk about. And I'd love to hear from you. So if you're not a member, join and then introduce yourself to the group. I'd love to talk to you. Guys, also, I just want to encourage you, if you need a website, or if you need graphic design or marketing, or if you're in charge of a nonprofit and maybe you need grant writing, if you need anything like that for your nonprofit or your small business, Grand River Agency wants to help you out. So that's the company I work for. So if you want to find out more information about that, go to grandriver.agency. All right, guys. Again, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. And as always, I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Manlihood ManCast. If you want to be a better husband, father, leader, a better man, you need to join our private Facebook group, the Manlihood Man Cave. Join today. Please help us out with a like, comment, share, and subscribe. And check us out at manlihood.com.